Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the final web chat on how to become a post-industrial powerhouse. Over the last few weeks, we've been looking at these 12 traits, and although I repeat some slides, it's solely because I believe in repetition, and through repetition, we remember things better. Trying to make the learning small is what we're trying to do. And this is why I think this TRA Academy and initiative is so cool. It allows us to present to a wider audience and hopefully give you tools that you can implement tomorrow. Because knowledge without understanding is useless. So today we're going to look at a different topic, but I'll start with my normal blah, blah, blah. This is me. As you can see, I'm a strategic advisor and a catalyst to entrepreneurs and intrapreneurs. By catalyst, I mean someone that provokes thinking and then gives you tools to turn that thinking into real, tangible action. The programs we do are really designed to make it easy to think and to think different, easy to plan and plan smarter, and obviously easier to deliver faster. And it's all about customers. And this is the key thing of the agile world. Agile has become a bit of a blah, blah, blah terminology. I've been doing it since 1999. And it's essentially about three things. The law of the customer, where the customer is more important in decision-taking than the shareholders. Where the law of the small team, so we realize small teams are effective and not just efficient. And remembering the difference between efficient and effective, anyone can be efficient, but if you're producing rubbish, you just produce rubbish very efficiently. Rubbish is delivering things that nobody wants. And you know that if people aren't buying your product or using your product. So if it's a TRA service on the internet for vehicle renewal, we have to use it. But are we doing it easily and usefully? We don't know. So utilization with a customer satisfaction such as Net Promoter Score helps us understand if we're really creating value. Today, as always, on the bottom of the screen, you can see a translation. This is PowerPoint. Like I've said in the past, I pray that it's translating effectively and efficiently, but it will have some mistakes, as I've been embarrassed in the past. So to today, industrial age is dead. On top of that, we also know that since the beginning of the post-industrial age, the digital age, company life cycles and CO life cycles have halved. We can also see that in some governments, right? There's less chance of longevity than ever before. So VUCA is the new norm. We spoke about VUCA in the past. For those of you that are new to these sessions, VUCA stands for volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous, chaos, in other words. But chaos is reality. And we need to live with chaos rather than fight chaos. So some questions for today's session. Are you and your people finding it difficult to stay focused on the right things? Has COVID, working from home, ended up impacting in the wrong way? Do you and your customers both know what they need and do not need? And how aligned are you with your customers and they with you? So today we're going to look at a tool called the Value Proposition Canvas. It's part of Business Model Canvas, but today I'm using it in a slightly different way. So I've been using Alex Osterwalder's tools since they began, really, for more than 6 or 7 years. I'm one of the few fully trained experts on the subject, but I use it with a bunch of other tools because I believe in being agnostic, and so should you. Following a tool set from the book isn't good because every situation is different. So today we're going to really spend 60 minutes looking at the value proposition. Understanding the 80-20 rule, the Pareto rule. We've spoken about the Pareto rule in the past, but today we're going to look at it specifically to how you deliver value to the customer. And remember, value is something the customer will want to pay for and use. Even if it's a government service and it's free, you should think of it, what if this was paid for? And in these increasingly tight times, governments might decide to outsource your job to someone else. When I was head of technology for one of the entire groups of companies, Gulf News, I always ran that department. If I had to outsource my job and my people tomorrow, how do I make it easy for the boss to take that decision? So always look at life as if you are competing, because excuses are lies. You're either a victim or a victor. War, COVID, they're just challenges God throws at you, whoever God you look for. But ultimately, failure is a decision you took along the way. So today with VUCA, with COVID, with all this chaos, working from home, being overwhelmed, complaining is just an excuse. You have been given a chance on this planet to do good. It's up to you to do good by thinking in the 80-20 way. We all know the 80-20 rule, right? 20% of your customers produce 80% of your value. 20% of the work you do today gives 80% of the value to your business and to your customer. 20%. So the 80% is waste, and we can look into it to make things better. So today we're going to challenge you, as usual, to think differently. I do that by making these statements, which are a bit aggressive, but they're designed to help you think and question yourself. If you do not look in the mirror, how can you see the ugliness to improve on? I'll teach you this value proposition canvas tool at the high level and how to apply it internally as well as externally, and give you a good understanding of why a customer focus can quickly and effectively help you focus on doing the right things, and most importantly, stop doing the wrong things. Right, back to a slide I've had on every single presentation. What do we want to achieve? What do you want to achieve? Is to lead and succeed in today's volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous reality. Volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous. VUCA, that's what it stands for. Right? That's the reality. You can either remain here, always late, always upset, always under pressure, always unhappy, using traditional ways of management, especially project management, or you can try and do things differently. And even if you do these tools slightly, at least there's slight improvement. But what should irritate you is this. And remember, this is going back to 1980s or early 90s. There are teams out there that by using the Scrum Agile methodologies have improved by 400%. So if your job was improved by 400%, what would that look like? It would mean that all the waste has been removed and you have automated, digitalized what's necessary and focused every single moment of your day on doing great work, not good work, not bad work. And that's what we're going to look at today. The customer is king. A couple of slides to remind ourselves where we're at. Times are changing. Bob Dylan, as you know, I'm a big fan. Volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous. The road ahead is dark. The road ahead is unknown. But that's okay. We need to focus on the now and become more able to adapt, to be agile. We can be like this guy here, or we can be like this guy here. A chameleon changes continuously to stay alive. The dodo got eaten and disappeared. And we can blame the dodo's demise to the human beings that went on his island. But really, Tough luck. That's the way it goes. Survival of the fittest, or survival of those that are most able to adapt. So in the 20th century, it was all about industrial revolution, industrial ways of thinking. Here's the boss, I tell you what to do, command and control. Right? It's all about profit. It's all about competitive advantage. It's all about, this is my department, this is your department, stay within the rigid organizational boundaries. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's the reason why more and more companies are going bankrupt every single day. Refusal to change or inability to change is death, extinction. So we can't really lament these companies that are going down because they took the decisions that led to their downfall. The 21st century is inflection point. We're moving from industrial to post-industrial. You have to change. It's about speed and fluidity. It's about agility, which is about the customer, not about being agile. It's about fluid organizational boundaries. I'm not saying this isn't my job, right? It's about the entrepreneur, profit and purpose, and comparative advantage, right? And there's a hell of a lot more data out there. So the industrial age is dead. You need new tools, new ways to thinking, which has been the general message of all these presentations. So let's get a piece of paper and a pen. Here's a pen. There's a piece of paper. I want you to answer this question. On a scale of 0 to 10, how effective are you at delivering great value to your customers? Now, these customers might be people using your website, people buying your product, or internal customers. You're delivering a service. How effective are you? And be honest. Luckily, you're in your own rooms. No one's there to see you. I'm not asking you to share it. Write it down, 0 to 10. Now I want you to write, if your customer was here, how would they rate your deliverables and the quality of service? So if I was now sitting with your customer and I said, on a scale of 0 to 10, how good is this person at delivering? What would they write? And now imagine if you brought these two things together. You've probably scored 7 or 6 out of 10. The customer was probably writing 4 out of 10. I'd be amazed if you both wrote the same thing, 4, 4, 4, 7, 7. I would be amazed. But you know what? You don't know that until you've actually had the conversation. But it's not a nice conversation to have. It's not very easy to say to the customer, how effective am I? Because we get defensive. And we spoke about that in previous things. Never measure KPIs on humans. We should be measuring processes. Measure a human, they get defensive. So first of all, we have to have this conversation. And this conversation might have to happen 5, 10, 15, 20 times before we start understanding what do we mean by value. And usually it's because of bad communication. You think you've got to do something, they think you've got to do something else. Even if they both know what each one of you needs to deliver, your definition of quality is different. Quality is one of the words I usually ban my customers from saying. It's a dirty word. It's a lie. It doesn't mean anything. Ask an Italian for a quality pizza and ask an American for a quality pizza. As an Italian, I would vomit if I have to go to an American pizzeria. Pizza Huts, all these things. Disgusting, vile creations of a pizza. But an American thinks it's great. He probably thinks the Neapolitan or Roman pizza is awful. Who's right? Neither of us. They're perceptions, and value is perception. But until we sit around the table, we can't really address these perceptions. And if these perceptions are not clear, then how do you know what you need to do every day? So it starts with a clear understanding of value as measured by. If someone says to you, I need quality, stop and say, as measured by. What does it mean to have quality? Start peeling the onion until you have a clear understanding. And then you can say, let's rate value. Because until we have that, you can never know, are you busy doing good work or busy doing the wrong work? So now a little video to really help you focus on what is it I should be doing every day. Let me rub all this stuff off.
Here's a little food for thought. There's an old saying that says, if the first thing you do when you wake up each morning is eat a live frog, nothing worse can happen for the rest of the day. Now, I don't know about you, but I think that's a pretty safe assumption. Well, Brian Tracy has said that your frog should be the most difficult task on your things to do list. The one you're most likely to procrastinate on. Because if you eat that first, it'll give you energy and momentum for the rest of the day. But if you don't, if you let him sit there on the plate while you do 100 unimportant things, it can drain your energy, and you won't even know it. William James, one of the founders of modern psychology, said this: procrastination is attitude's natural assassin. There's nothing so fatiguing as an uncompleted task. So, with that said, here's your assignment for the next 30 days. Take a look at your list. Circle the frog. Eat that first, and you'll thank us for it.
Okay, one of my favorite videos, eating the frog. The frog is the most important thing I have to do today. So I'd like you to do that straight after today. Get another piece of paper. If this is a piece of paper, write down all the things you need to do and then circle the most important one. In other words, decide what you're going to say no to. If there are 100 things on your list, I want you to say no to 99 of them. Because you cannot take a decision on what's most important. You're never going to go anywhere. On top of it, you will always be looking at the sweets, not at the apple. It's easy to go for the easy things, right? Easy. Difficult to say no and focus on this thing. So step one is write down all the things you need to do and circle the number one thing. We spoke in other workshops, focus on the one thing and deliver. That's your OKRs, that's your daily, weekly scrums and sprints. But I hope this time around when you write this down, you'll sit there and you'll think, how do I know if this is the number one thing on my list? How do I actually know this? And that's why we have to start looking at the world from the customer's perspective. Today, too little time, too much work, never-ending demands. Many people have lost their jobs across the world, which means the people that remain in their jobs are now doing even more work, which makes them unhappy. And their bosses are unhappy because they're not getting the work they want. And then, of course, their customers are unhappy. So as customers go to other companies, and then sales go down, and profits go down, and we have to remove even more people. And it's a circle that doesn't stop. But it doesn't have to be that way. That's industrial age thinking, because that's all we've known, but now we're inflection point. We're having to move from industrial age thinking to post-industrial system. And that doesn't really work because we don't know yet. So longer hours, meeting after meetings. I want you all to raise your hands. Who, at the beginning of COVID, found home working more productive? I'm hoping most of you raise your hands. I'd now like to ask the second question. How many of you still find it highly productive? How many of you are finishing a meeting, and as soon as that meeting, you're into another meeting? And as soon as that's finished, another one. It seems to me that on-demand meetings is the new norm. You can't get away. In an office, at least, you walked from one meeting to another. So I'm seeing some of my clients fix this by having a very simple policy. No meetings before midday. The morning is to do work. The afternoon is for blah, 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 and emergency meetings. But by focusing the morning on doing work, the frog, at least work is getting done. And this is also really affecting the illusion of multitasking. My children think it's great to multitask. Yet everyone knows that's ever studied it that it does not work. Think of the person on his telephone doesn't see the truck or the wall and drives straight into it. Are they stupid? Are they blind? No. Because multitasking means context switching. And we'll talk about that in a moment. So VUCA impact is crazy stuff, right? And people getting more and more upset because we don't know how to manage chaos. Like we said earlier, 20th century to 21st century. How do you remain sane? How do you remain laser focused on doing the right stuff as opposed to multitasking, juggling? Here's a very simple graph. And I really want you to question this, right? Don't believe me, go out there, do some research. The main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing. That's the difference between greatness and averageness. Multitasking is the beauty of the industrial age command and control boss. The fact is, if you're working on one task, your working time is 100% focused. If you're working on two tasks, then this is the amount of waste in the system. When you have three tasks, four tasks, so when you're juggling four tasks, the reality is that half of your day, more than half your day, is now waste. You know that, for example, any of you that have email alerts or WhatsApp alerts on your phones and computers, as soon as it goes bing, what do? You look at it. And if you were to really focus, you'd now know that the next 10 minutes have been lost because you will not come back to doing the main thing and you would have lost time. The intelligent worker turns it off. The intelligent worker agrees with his boss. I'm going to be working on this thing here. Is this the most important thing? The boss will say yes. Good. Then make sure no one interrupts me. I don't know how many of you remember last week we spoke about the upside down V. Traditional management is here's the CEO here, here's the management and all the layers and the workers at the bottom. The servant leader, the leader of the agile world, knows it's this way round. The CEO is at the bottom because he knows or she knows they need to make the next level productive so that the worker level is free, because the only valuable work done in a company is here. Which is why in the last session, I challenged anyone to remove middle management. Remove middle management, you save a lot of money, you get rid of a lot of politics, and guess what? Communications go up and down faster. They are the 80% that do very little work. So Pareto, in Italian, sorry for the bias, but one must be proud of one's country, even though it might be in a mess. Pareto said, for many events, roughly 80% of the effects come from 20% of the causes. You could apply this to COVID. You could apply it to your customers. You could apply it to your work. And it's not exactly 80-20, it's roughly. So in some cases it might be 90-10, 70-30. But really, we need to go back to this. You can see from the picture, he's quite a long time ago. And what we need to do is look at this and really start applying this. Again, write down that list of all the things you have to do. Make time in the morning to make this list. Put a circle around the most important thing. Lock yourself away and focus on the number one thing. But again, I'm still talking about the same stuff, prioritization. But without the context of the customer, how do I know if that's the most important thing or this is the most important thing? If I don't know what's important for the customer, how am I creating value? Because that's what's important these days. Customers' perceptions are changing. They are very fickle. It's a customer market, not a producer's market. Think of retail in this country. You go into many shops, you're treated badly. The staff are underpaid. Many are now being forced to pay less. Of course, you're going to get bad service. And they're not trained. So why should I buy from them when I can go to Amazon.com and buy something? You know, it's obvious. So, reminding ourselves, the laws of an agile company are the law of the customer, where the customer is before the shareholder. The law of a customer doesn't mean customer focus, customer journeys, if it's not in the context of more important than shareholder, then that's just industrial blah, 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 pretending to be agile. As my father used to say, lipstick on a pig is still a pig. And that's what many of these agile transformations are doing. They're bringing great big consultants who have no idea about agile. I won't name them, but you can easily find out by asking them, how agile are they? And if they give you blah, 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 just go as measured by. Because if you're measuring, then you have improved points. The small team and the network of teams. Why? Because they found this is the human brain. If you are trying to fix something on your own, it's like that. If you're working with other people, it's like this. Why? Why does the human brain light up when it's solving a problem as a team, as a group? A problem that gives value to the customer. Because we're social animals. They often say the worst form of torture is solitary confinement. Because on your own, you go mad. Admittedly, being in a camp, having your fingers pulled off and all that torture is not nice, and it's a lot more painful. But they say solitary confinement is the worst case, as in long term. So now let's really talk about the brunt of today's story. The value proposition canvas. It was invented by Osterwalder many years ago as a supplement to the business model canvas, which is that one there. And it's really focusing on one customer segment at a time. This side here is known as the customer profile or the customer map. This side here is known as the value map. Where they come together is product, market, fit. That's what product market fit is when displayed visually in a design tool. The first element of this is here, the customer. What's the customer trying to get done when he employs your products and services? What job are they trying to get done when they employ your product and service? Yesterday I had to do the car registration. Right. So what job am I trying to do when I go to the TRA website? The job is to register my car, but there might be other jobs, right? I need to understand the customer, and I don't do that by sitting over here in my kingdom thinking I know the customer without talking to the customer. This tool is designed to really work well when you bring them together. The example I will give is Emirates. About a year ago or 9 months ago, I can't remember now, the CTO asked me to come in and talk to the team. There they brought together two divisions. One was the pure tech team, the other one was the more analytics team, the BI business analytics teams. They now both sat under the same person, the CTO. And you can imagine when you bring two divisions together, there's going to be overlap. Some people doing one job and other people doing the same job in the other team. There is friction. Teams start to fight. I'm not saying that was happening in Emirates, but it happens everywhere, right? How many times do you see the internal battle versus the outside battle? Internal politics tend to become everything that everyone does, as one director has a pitched battle with the other director, forgetting entirely the only reason they both have a job is because there is a customer out there who is choosing to buy their products. But when you're stuck internally, that can become very, very messy. So today I really want you to focus on this tool as an internal tool. It's obvious how this works with a customer. I sit with a customer, I try and understand their jobs, I understand their pains in getting those jobs done, and I try and understand what gains they would get if the job was done. The process is simple. List down all the jobs, right? The customer is trying to get done when he employs your products or service. You might end up with 20 or 30 different jobs. Then by talking with the customer, we'll slowly identify which job are the most important, coming back to the frog, the prioritization, the 80-20, the 20% which give the most value. So we end up with a few ticked off. Then we can ask, what are all the pains being experienced? Emotional pains, functional pains, social pains in getting these jobs done. And what are the possible gains? And again, there might be 20, 30, 100, but again, we have to eliminate through conversations. But the beauty is you can do this internally. So at Emirates, we sat these two teams down, about 10 or 12 people in the room, and we asked a simple question. Who is your customer? And there was a bit of a debate, and we kept on pushing, and we kept on pushing, until they realized their customer was the CEO of Emirates. And the question really was, what job is the CEO of Emirates trying to get done when he employs IT's products and services? By doing that, the team started thinking together. The brain picture earlier, instead of thinking individually or as a silo, they now started realizing the problem. Why does the CEO need IT as a role? And we answer that by being clear what the jobs the CEO is trying to get done by having IT. And we had a conversation. We had many different post-its. Then we used something called dotmocracy to identify the most important. And by doing this over a 4-hour period, the teams align through debating, through conversations, by always thinking from the point of view of the customer. And once they did this, then they asked these questions: what pains and gains are to be had? And then they validate that with the CEO. And then, and only then, do you think about your stuff. Because the product needs to fit the market, not the market needs to fit the product. That was old industrial age thinking. That worked. Today, that doesn't work. This is why everyone's going bankrupt. because I know best. So ultimately, you then design products and services to address the most important pains and most important gains. How will this product create this gain or this gain? How will it relieve this pain or that pain in order to get this job done or that job done? In other words, 80-20 being clarified. The customer wants something blue, but we've decided to only go for green. We say that. And we manage that expectation so the customer gives up on green and is focused on red, because conversations with the customer has shown that what he really needs is this. And if this process is being run frequently, then as things change, we adapt our products and services over here. And ultimately, that means saying no to stuff. Stop doing things that nobody wants. That's insanity. Yet we carry on delivering things that we now know are no longer relevant. So when you do this, it looks like this. This is Hilti, a company that had to change because its market disappeared with very cheap products from China. And constantly talking to the customer, they changed from a producer to a fleet management system. It decided these were the most important jobs and said no to many other jobs, and decided to build a value behind these and these things. In other words, saying no to many things in their business. So how do we answer these questions? Well, again, at the end, I'll have a link to a website. You can download this stuff. But these are key questions, right? We start off with, what job is the customer trying to get done when he employs my services? So if you work in IT and your customer is marketing or the CEO, then that's what we're doing. Here are some questions. They're called trigger questions. What tasks are they trying to do when they perform work? What are their functional problems? What about emotional problems? By going through this checklist, we end up with many different post-its. And from the post-its, we then identify the most important ones by talking, engaging with the customer. Once we've done that, the customer is happy. But we don't stop there, because then we move to asking these questions on pains. And after that, the customer is getting happy. Why? Because between you, you're identifying this is more important pain than this pain. And I shall create a value proposition, a product and service that addresses this pain, and we are both agreeing to say no to that pain, alleviating the amount of waste in the system. And we do the same thing for games until the customer is happy. Okay? So ultimately, once we've done that, we move to the back end to design this. I hope this is clear. You start with the customer, validate this, validate this, validate this, say no to the build products and services that customers actually want and can differentiate against. And if we are doing this, we're truly learning to understand the jobs that customers are trying to get done. And by doing that, the world becomes less chaotic. Now, some of you saying, I can't say that, my boss will fire me. Or, Well, that's doing nothing. That's just complaining and assuming and not actually achieving anything. By having this thing, I mean, you can see behind me the value, the bigger brother of the value proposition canvas, if you can see my video. But it's a tool set which is designed to make things visual. If you make things visual, they're easier to understand. If you're using post-its, right? Here's a post-it that says, Alex Osterwalder. He's the person that designed this tool. It's now clear because I've written it down and I've shared it. Use capital letters because It's easier to understand. And by putting on a post-it and putting it on the wall, it's now ready for conversation. The first conversations will be messy. The customer will say, I need everything. And then you can go away and say, well, are you sure? And they go, yeah. Okay, but if we were to say no to something, what would it be? And you keep on having that conversation. So you eliminate from the bottom up. And if they're adamant that they need everything, then you go, okay, let's talk about how I will produce this value. And then you can take them through the products and services to create these things. And the customer will start understanding, my word, that's a lot of things. That's a lot of resources we need to deliver this. And you go, yes, it is. That's why I need 800 people and $800 million. However, customer, if you were just to focus on these 3 things and say no to the other 7 things, I probably just need 10 people and 100 million. Should we start with that? And that's another conversation. So slowly, profits or return on investment, if you're non-profit, gets clarified, at which point there's usually a dip. Like anyone that's put in a major IT system knows that straight after, reality sets in. And then slowly it does this. Like we said in the opening slides, we're looking at 400% improvement. Or even if it's not, 30% improvement. That's a big difference, 400 versus 30, but I'll tell you what, 30 is good enough. Because then you'll know you can achieve this one day. So this is all about less is more. By really sitting with customers, debating, prioritizing together, we are collaborating, we are talking the same language, we are building trust, we are building understanding, and we are learning to say no to the donkey work, the 80-20, because a lot of what you do every day creates 0 value to the customer. And even if you do think it does, that's still an assumption. And like they say, you never make an ass out of you and me. Assumptions to assume is dangerous territory. You have to validate it. So, Agile is a mindset. It starts with being a mindset. But from the mindset, we bring in these tools. The mindset is telling us, customer is king. The mindset is to understand the customer better than the customer so that you can deliver value that is valuable to the customer. It's not about doing what the customer tells you. It's about understanding the customer and you telling them ultimately what's right for them. It's to drive the customer, not be driven by the customer. Because you will understand the problem better than they will in the end. So today's a shorter presentation because it's just a more focused conversation, I hope. The slides are available, but I'm just leaving this up there so you can either download a video about this sort of stuff or the template, and it's free. All these tools are free.